Hello and welcome to 3D Inovacija. So today video is gonna be something new for me. I'm gonna take you step by step through painting Fire Fist Ace figure from One Piece. It's gonna be a complete tutorial. So this model is made by Samiho Studios. I will show you what colors I used, what I liked, how I applied them and what I didn't like. Ideally you should be able to follow along with the video and get the exact same results at the end. Since we are covering everything in detail, this video will probably be a bit longer than most, so I will add chapters. This way you can easily skip around if you're only interested in some parts. Before we start, here's a complete list of all the colors I used on the figure. This way you can be prepared if you want to follow along. For all the tools I used, there will be Amazon affiliate link in the description. Hope you enjoy it, hope you learn something new and you end up with a badass figure that you can proudly put in your display. So alright, let's jump in and get started. Alright guys, let's kick off things with something exciting and make flames. For flames I used clear ABS-like resin from Anycubic. I wanted the flames to look super clean and very glass-like, so I printed them solid. I thought about hollowing them, but that would mean adding internal supports, which would ruin the final look at the end. The size of the entire model is actually based around these flames. I went all in and printed the largest flame I could in one solid piece. You can see here in the slicer screenshot, I printed it from top to the bottom and it printed for like 40 hours. I didn't want to cut the flames and glue them later because that would ruin the seamless look I was going for. So based on these flames, all other figure pieces had to be scaled. After printing, I followed my usual routine. I washed it in alcohol and I cured it. The thing to remember with the clear resin is that if washed too long or cured too long, it can cause yellowing, so keep it under 2 minutes. Even with that, there's still a bit of yellowing and the surface looks a bit frosted. We will fix that later, so let's first get rid of all the support marks. I start with the sanding drill to speed up the process. And I know that everybody's always saying this, so I need to say it also. Remember to wear a mask when sanding resin. For example, in this case I could not sand it outside like I wanted, so I used my airbrush boot and removed the blue filter from it to act like a mini exhaust fan and sucks out all the dust. I also keep a small vacuum with a HEPA filter underneath to catch everything that falls. I think it's used for nails or something. It really helps in making the workspace clean and safe. After using sanding paper with a low grit, I switched to these little sanding sponges that also work with the drill. They are color coded by grit, from 400 to 1000. They don't last super long, but they are really convenient. You can just punch a hole through one, pop it under the drill and you're good to go. For the final sanding step, yeah, we need to go manual. I use these flexible sanding sponges because they are perfect for curved surfaces. I work my way through grit from 400 all the way to 2000. You can use them for wet sanding and when you're done you just wash them and you can reuse them again on a new project. If you're interested in any of the tools I'm using in this video, I will be adding Amazon affiliate links in the description. So after sanding, we're gonna make it look more clear and more glass-like by coating a thin layer of clear resin. We're gonna use the same resin that we used to print the parts. You don't need much, just a very thin coat is enough to instantly see the difference. Before you start, be sure to blow off all the dust from the model. Apply the resin with a brush and when you're done, double check because if you missed a spot, it will be noticeable. Now we're gonna cure it. I cure it for around 2 to 3 minutes. I noticed that if I took longer than that, it starts to yellow. The model is now all sticky since we didn't wash it in alcohol of course, so while curing it, try to minimize the surface that touches the ground. I use these plastic photo stands to lift the model up so it touches the ground at just one point, so my plate doesn't get dirty from the resin and it doesn't stick to it. Even after curing you will notice that model is still sticky and tacky. I tried to make an experiment and cure it for like 15 minutes and it was still sticky. So I think that's just the way it is, but don't worry, later we will use gloss varnish to seal up the model and it will become non-sticky. And here you can see the difference between applying that extra layer of resin and not applying. You can choose whichever one fits your project the best, but here I'm aiming for a more clear glass-like look, so I'm happy with how it turned out. Okay, now to color it we are gonna use alcohol inks. Be very careful with this, because little goes a long way here. Spray it on slowly, little by little, until you get the tone of the color that you want. I'm gonna start by spraying all the flames with a golden yellow color, since it will give us a great base to build upon. This part of the model, where we have a hand and little flames going out of his fingers, are also printed in clear resin, but we are gonna prime the whole model except these little flames at the top. So for now, protect the whole model and just leave these little flames, and we are gonna color them with the alcohol ink. So after the yellow, I'm switching over to the color called Sunrise Orange, and I'm gonna apply it only on the raised areas of the flame. It's gonna act as a highlight. And just a heads up, if you are layering from yellow to orange or from orange to red, it's gonna look good, but if you wanna go other way around, it's not. With alcohol inks, it's very hard to go from darker to lighter, because it's not gonna catch on. The last color I'm gonna use is called Apple Red, and I'm only gonna spray this one on the tips of the flames. And that's it. Once everything is done and dry, we'll finish it off with a coat of glossy varnish. The varnish will seal all the surfaces, it will get rid of the sticky feel, and it will give it a shiny glass-like look at the end. Okay, now it's time to sand the rest of the model. We're gonna use the same process we used for the clear resin. So sand, sand, and sand some more. You need to keep going until your hands are ready to fall off and you start to question all your life choices. That's when you know that you're almost done. Make sure to dry fit all your pieces and glue together any part that makes sense, because it will be much easier to paint them later on. If you spot any gaps or drain holes that you want to get rid of, fill them up with Milliput, let it dry completely, and then sand some more. The last step before painting is to put all the pieces onto sticks or clamps, so we can easily handle them while painting with airbrush. If you already colored the flames at the fingertips, you will need to mask them off. Well, even if you didn't color them, you will still need to mask them off, so it doesn't matter. And the best way to do it is by using plastic putty. It molds well, it covers well, and it comes off easily later on. For priming, I'm gonna use Vallejo Black Primer. And just like with any practical airbrush color, the trick is to do 2 light coats, maybe even 3, instead of 1 heavy one, because it will give you a smoother finish and better coverage. Once the primer is on and everything is dry and ready, we will move on to the skin tones. I'm gonna start with the Vallejo White Ink. When it comes to the skin tones, believe me, layering is the name of the game. First, I'm gonna spray white ink over all skin areas. And while I have white in the airbrush, I'm also gonna hit any other part that I want it to be more brighter and vibrant later on. For example, here you can see me spraying orange directly over the black primer, and it looks terrible, so don't do that, skip that part. I went back and added a layer of white ink on top before continuing. The next color I'm gonna use for skin tones is World Purple from Vallejo. This will give skin a nice pinkish undertone. Spray it in light and controlled bursts, and remember 2 or even 3 layers is much better than 1 thick layer. We want to cover pretty much all the areas where we applied the white ink on. So after that, we're gonna use Vallejo Red Ink, and we're gonna use it to build up some depth and shadows. We're gonna focus this color on the areas where natural shadows would fall, for example bends, underarms, creases, and places where muscles separate. Next I'm gonna use Topaz Skin from Warpaint's Fanatic. I decided to use this color because I wanted for the model to have a bit darker complexion. But if you don't have this one, you don't need to worry, you can use practically any other skin tone and it will look good. The important thing now is to thin the color down. I cannot stress this enough. I usually use ratio 1:1, color to water, and apply it in several light layers. You want enough coverage to tint the skin, but not so much that it covers the pinkish tone underneath. Next thing we're gonna use is Tourmaline Skin Color, also from Warpaint's Fanatic. I don't know if I said it right. The process is the same, thin it down, apply it in light coats, but apply it only on the highlight areas, like muscles, legs, anywhere light would naturally hit. Finally, we're gonna use the color called Ruby Skin. It's the lightest of the 3 we used. We're gonna thin it down and apply it just to the highlight points, so tops of the muscles. Normally I would hit also areas like back of the neck and nose, but since he's wearing a hat, we're not gonna do it here. So next up is Reikland Flash Shade from Citadel, and since it's already a shade, there is no need to dilute it any further. We're gonna use it to enhance shadowed areas like creases, bands and muscle separation. Focus it especially on spots like abs where you wanna see clear definition. So just try to be precise and keep it mostly in the crevices. Normally I wouldn't use it on a face, but in this case the face is mostly in the shadow because of the hat, so it's okay to give it a light general overspray just to tone it down a bit. Here is one very important tip. If you have skin parts that are separated, like we have head and torso in this case, make sure to test fit them together now and then while painting. That way you can check if the tone transitions smoothly and nothing looks out of place. Now, after all of these skin tones that we use, we wanna bring back that pinkish tone a bit. So we're gonna use Rosy Flash from Vallejo. We're gonna water it down heavily, like 70-30% water to paint ratio, and give the whole model a light overspray. This will pull everything together nicely. Once you're happy with the skin tones, protect them. Please don't skip this step, just give it a quick coat of matte varnish spray. You never know what can happen, a fly can sneak into the room and land on the model. Trust me, fixing skin tones is the worst. Most of the time you will end up redoing everything from scratch, layering it all over again. Now that we're done with the skin tones, let's move on and lay down some base coats for the other parts of the model. For the knife, I'm gonna use green skin from Warpaint's Fanatic. For the pants, I'm gonna use oak brown. And for the base, I'm gonna go with a deep grey. Now we're gonna add some depth to the trousers. I'm gonna use Cyber Brown. I'm gonna spray it all over the areas where shadows would naturally fall, like under the legs, around the belts, around the pockets and other similar places. For the leg pouch, I'm gonna use Imperial Navy from the Warpaint's Fanatic. Here we're gonna use Orange Fire from Vallejo as a base coat for both his beads and his hat. This orange works great, especially as an undercoat. We're gonna layer bloody red over the beads. We're gonna try to leave some orange showing through in some spots, and it will act as a natural highlight and it will give beads more dimension. For the hat, I'm adding a coat of Phlegan Orange shade from Citadel. Just spray it evenly across the whole surface. Since the hat isn't flat, the shade will naturally settle into the creases and help create a nice sense of depth. Moving on to the base, we're gonna use Dark Tone Wash from Warpaints. Spray it into all the creases and recessed areas of the model. You don't have to be super precise, just hit all the valleys where one stone ends and another begins. This will help creating separation between the stones. Next, I'm gonna take Griff Charger Grey, contrast paint from Citadel, and spray it all over the raised areas, basically anywhere a light can hit. And just like that, a little bit of wash, a little bit of contrast paint, and we turn some boring looking rocks into something more interesting and more visually appealing. Now let's use Build 10 green shade to add some depth to the knife. Just spray a thin coat over the whole piece, it will naturally settle into the creases, especially around those belt-like looking wrappings. Next, I use Blood Angels Red contrast paint on the beads to make them feel more vibrant. Personally, I wasn't really happy how it turned out, but you might like the effect. Since it's a contrast paint, it settles between the beads and creates a shaded look, which could work depending on the style you're going for. I still wasn't happy how the hat looked, so I grabbed some hot orange from Vallejo and gave it a spray underneath and slightly towards the center from the top. I left the outer edges lighter color. It looked much better, so I took it a step further and used dark red tone wash. Again, I sprayed it from underneath and again I sprayed it from the top, but I used it in a tighter circle. Be sure to keep the very top of the edges and the head lighter for a nice highlight effect. For the leg pouch, I used Crystal Blue just to spray highlights from the top, and then I added some dark tone wash into the recessed areas to bring out the details. Now I'm gonna use Buffet Hide from Warpaint's Fanatic. we're gonna add some highlights to the trousers. Thin the paint down to about 1:1 ratio with water and spray it from the top to catch all the raised areas. So the last part that we can handle with the airbrush are the boots. To do that we need to protect the legs, wrap them with a masking tape and press a bit of the plastic putty into the shoes to prevent any oversprays from hitting the skin tones. Good thing that we already protected the skin with the varnish, right? Right? So if you haven't varnished yet, be extra careful. Tape or putty can damage the unsealed paint. For the boots I'm starting with the oak brown as the base coat, so yeah, just spray it evenly across the entire boot. When it dries, switch over to cyborg brown and spray it into the creases and bendy areas to create some depth and shadows. And this is pretty much it for the airbrush. Time to clean it up and get our wet palette out. We are switching to the brushes to refine all the details. So let's start with the boots. We're gonna use silver metallic from Atom and paint all the buckles and little decoration that look like they could be metallic. After that, I'm gonna use cyborg brown to emphasize other details on the boots like soles, heels and stitches. Be careful, but honestly, unlike skin tones, if you mess up here it's very easy to fix. Now the inside of the boots can be a little tricky, just go in with the brush as deep as you can, but don't push it, it's really not worth it. You can mess up the skin tones and this part is really not visible. Now to fix transition between glossy flame and the skin tones, we are gonna use a tiny bit of red ink, just enough to hide any imperfections. For the elbow protector, I wanted it to look like leather. So we're gonna do this in two steps. First, cover the whole thing with Ruby Umber and let it dry. In the meantime, we're gonna switch over to the bracelet and use Dead White from Vallejo to paint it whole. So just go nice and steady, don't rush it. You don't wanna accidentally hit the skin tone at this point. For the lock pose bracelet, we're gonna start with the base coat of silver metallic. If you're not super confident with your brush control, it could be a good idea to wrap a little masking tape around the skin to protect it. For the bracelet, we still need to add the second color and we're gonna use bloody red for it. Since we want the lock pose to be really shiny and vibrant, we're gonna paint it with the white ink as a base coat, so anything we put on top of it is gonna look more vibrant. Now let's get back to the elbow protector. I'm gonna cover the whole thing with a strong tone wash first and let it dry. After that we're gonna take dark tone wash and apply it only on the raised part, right below the elbow. This will make the whole thing look like used leather. And now for the fun part. Yeah, imagine me doing an air quotes here. I'm gonna take the black from Vallejo and spend the next hour or maybe even two painting the 4 tiny letters on the arm. Fortunately I have those zoom goggles, so they really help in these kind of situations. And now let's go back to the lock pose. I'm gonna use clear blue from Tamiya. I don't know what's up with this color. The effect looks amazing, but it's so hard to work with. It feels like it's dissolving the color underneath while I'm applying it. As for the skeleton tattoo on the back, I'm gonna use Muled Berry from the Warpaints. So just cover the whole tattoo area first, and then we will go in with the Dead White to paint the eyes, the nose bone and the teeth over the top. Now going back again to the lock pose bracelet, I'm gonna cover it with a soft tone wash. This will create a really nice effect and it will settle into those little holes on the bracelet. As for the other bracelet, the red and white bracelet, I didn't want it to look all shiny and new like it came out from the store. So I took a bit of Nuln Oil and just painted it all over. It gave it depth and it made it look like it's used by the freaking fire user. I'm also gonna use Nuln Oil for the skeleton tattoo on the back. Just go around the tattoo and apply a little bit along the edges. It will make the whole design pop out more. And I think that's it for the torso, so let's move on and decorate the head decorations. I'm gonna use Ultramarine Blue from Warpaint's Fanatic, and then I'm gonna use Dead White for the teeth. You will notice that teeth are separated a bit. I think the best way to handle this is to first paint them all white, and then take a little bit of Ultramarine Blue just on the tip of your brush and draw the lines between them, and that will separate them. For the rest of this decoration, I'm gonna paint it with a silver and then use a bit of black for the eyes. Now let's move on and decorate the knife. Use fur brown for the top of the handle of the knife, and when you get to those little holes, just thin the paint a lot and drip it down inside. For the bottom handle of the knife, I'm gonna use ruby skin. At the end, just cover the whole thing with a soft tone wash and let it dry. So cover the top handle and the bottom handle. While that's drying, grab some oak brown and paint the decorations that are wrapping around the knife. So this next part is optional, but I really like how it looks, so I'm gonna say it here. Take again ruby skin, and lightly go over the raised parts of the bottom handle. Don't touch the areas where the wash has settled in the recesses, and this way it will look like the knife has been actually used. For the rest of the decorations that you see around the knife, I used Greedy Gold metallic from Warpaints and added a little bit of the silver at the top of the handle. So to finish it all off, use some neon oil and apply it into the recessed areas, practically anywhere that you think the shadows could form, like around the handle or below the decorations. Okay, so let's go now and finish up the hat also. I'm gonna use little brown to color the medallion and that little decoration on the rope. And then I'm gonna apply strong tone wash to make it all look like it's old. For the skeleton decoration, I'm gonna use pellet bone speed paint. To make the ropes look old and, well, ropey, we are gonna first apply deck tan and let it dry. When skeleton decoration dried, it looked a bit too dark for me, so I used off-white from Vallejo. I thinned it down a lot to practically being a wash and went over the skeleton again. This toned it down a bit and it was looking good now. It looked like old bones. Going back to the ropes now, use Skeleton Horde contrast paint and just apply it all over. This will make it look like real old ropes. And the final thing is applying Blood Angels Red contrast paint on those feathers at the bottom. And that's pretty much it for the hat. Let's move on. There's not much to do on the leg pouch. I just used a bit of the Greedy Gold and painted the decorations. For the hair of the model, we are gonna go all black. Remember to also paint those little hair parts. They are black from the primer, but painting them black again with Vallejo color will give them a different finish. On the trousers, we are gonna use Imperial Navy Blue for the leg pouch belt and Ruby Amber for the pants belt. I'm gonna use neon oil from Citadel over the leg pouch belt to make it feel more dynamic and to give it depth. And I'm gonna use strong tone wash for the pants belt. This will make the belt look like leather belt. Now for the buckles and the rest of the decorations, just paint them all silver and use a little bit of bronze for the letter A on the pants buckle. And now for the most stressful part of the model. It will be all for nothing if I make a mistake here, and I should really start doing this first instead of leaving it for the last. So let's start with the eyes and use black to paint them all over from the inside. Over the black I'm gonna use off-white from Vallejo, but I'm gonna leave a little bit of the black outline around the eyes. Now I'm gonna use Cyborg Brown to build the eye. Start with a little circle and just expand it and make it bigger and bigger until you reach the size that you're satisfied with. Now you can pick which color of the eyes you want. I went with the letter brown. And just make the iris. Leave a little bit of the outline that we made previously with the Cyborg Brown. The last part is to make the pupil, so you can take a little bit of black on the tip of your brush and just pick it into the eye. But the eyes are so small, and if you don't want to, you don't have to, you can mess up the eye and it's not even visible. For the eyebrows I used Cyborg Brown again, and for the lips Guilliman Flash. I saw that this character also had freckles under his eyes, so you can just take a little bit of black on the tip of your brush and add a few dots under both of his eyes. And that's it. Yeah, we are getting dangerously close to the end here. There's just one thing left, and that is the base. We're gonna use the Deck 10 and just dry brush the whole base. This will make every rock pop out more. And for the end, just varnish everything, protect it, and that's pretty much it. Use gloss varnish on the flames and on the lock poles on his hand, and for everything else, matte varnish. I will say that this model is done. Time for a grand reveal. Roll it.
Trials and the pain, and even when all hope seems vain, we rise again and break the chain, and love's the prize we'll surely gain. Run through the fire and face the storm, and hearts collide where heroes are born. Love's a game that we will play, fight for you till the end.
So this is it. If you watched the whole video, congratulations, I hope you liked it. Hope you learned something and enjoyed it. And if you just jumped to this point to see the final results, welcome, I hope you like it. This was a pretty long video, it was a step-by-step guide, so let me know in the comments if you liked it. Would you like me to shorten it a bit in the future videos, or do you like this kind of walkthrough from start to finish? And now on to the next project, and see you soon in the next video. Bye!